Well, welcome to the third of 9 videos looking at the political frame. And what we're going to do during this video is look at sources of power, personal power tactics, and the distribution of power. So it should be a great video. Let's go ahead and dig right into it. So for sources of power, you should be familiar with many of these, but perhaps some of these are new to you. So when you look at sources of power, you've got authority or positional power. You have the ability to control rewards, the ability to be coercive and force people to do certain things. You may say that's a subset of authority, but you don't actually need authority to be able to coerce someone to do something. Information and expertise. Interesting. Yes, if you control information or you have unique expertise, you have a source of power. Your reputation precedes you, but is also a source of power. Finally, there's personal power, power that you have yourself. There are alliances and networks that you can form and utilize as a source of power. Access and control of the agenda is going to be critical and going to be important. And then finally, the ability to frame, the ability to set the perspective by which a situation is going to be viewed. Now I'm going to veer a little off course, but when you look at national power, it's actually kind of related to this, and there are kind of 4 sources of national power. First of all, there's military. There's a coercive force. Information. That's another force. Economic, which would be perhaps control of rewards, if you will, but economic power. And then there's diplomatic power, the ability to convince people to do different things. So when you look at this from the perspective of national power, there are 4 instruments of national power. Again, military, economic, diplomatic, and I forgot one. Which one did I forget? Military, information, diplomatic, and economic power. Very cool. All right, well, we're going to move on now and look at personal power tactics. So there are a couple of different things that you can do that can influence your power. One of which, of course, is to say, well, if you do this for me, I will do this for you. And that actually works very, very well. The ability to commit and be consistent in supporting an endeavor will build power. The ability to become liked and to do social proofs. Authority creates personal power, and then scarcity of a resource that you control creates personal power. I really like the 2 ideas that are over in the right side of this particular slide. The first of which, the Chancellor of University of California at Berkeley is commenting on the multiple constituents that he has to serve and their very divergent needs. I'll pick on the middle one, but having worked in the administration at a university for a long period of time, there can never be enough parking for faculty. And if there is enough parking for faculty, then the arguments will move to, it's not close enough to my office. And this will move literally into people measuring the distance. I'm really not kidding. Measuring the distance of their parking spot and comparing it with others. It's a source of endless conflict. The other idea is this idea of zones of indifference. That sometimes the only area you can move in are areas that few people care about, but they plant the seeds, they serve as a catalyst for really doing great things later on. And so zones of indifference is a important idea, and it's something that's worth thinking about within your workplace, within your work environment. What are those areas that you're going to have to, and you've probably heard this term before, what are those areas that are really meaningful, but you're going to have to cash in political chips to move in that area? And you have to kind of measure out how many political chips do you have, and how many chips are you willing to use, and then where are those zones of indifference where you're going to be able to move without using any political chips. Very cool. Anyway, great idea, or a great framework for thinking about your own organization. All right, well, that brings us to actually the kind of last topic that we're going to cover during this particular video, and that is the distribution of power. You're going to have certain organizations that are characterized as overbounded. The power is highly concentrated in a few folks, and that power is tightly regulated. Okay, and this regulates politics with a very firm hand. And if you were listening to some of the earlier videos, I would argue that the Iraqi army and many of the armies around the world are overbounded. You have to go up so high within the hierarchy to get any decision at all. That it inhibits the agility of the warfighters on the ground, and it really slows down their ability to make decisions and to respond to the environment. And then you've got other armies that are underbounded. The power is diffuse and the system is loosely controlled. It does encourage conflict and power games, but it also encourages innovation, and it encourages agility. And in warfare, agility is incredibly important. So anyway, this idea of overbounded systems and underbounded systems. The one other example, I once spent a year at an institution as a American Council of Education fellow, and I got a chance to observe. And it was a great experience. And the current president had not engaged in this, but the previous president of the institution had set up two organizations with exactly the same goal. So he was openly encouraging conflict and power games. And his kind of premise was, let the best one win, and I'll shut down the other one. Could you imagine that? In higher education, setting up two organizations with exactly the same goal, and then let the strongest survive. Well, that's an example of a underbounded system. All right, well, very good. We are finishing up now on the third of 9 videos looking at the political frame. We've talked about sources of power, personal power tactics, and the distribution of power in organization. And what we're going to do during the next video is we're going to move in and start looking at this idea of conflict in organizations, and we're going to take a pause and look at a vignette, a story from India in terms of building coalitions and moving forward a political agenda. So thanks for joining me. Study hard, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.